You're listening to the weekend edition of Good Morning Scotland with Graham Stewart. So Donald Trump took the stage on Thursday night at the Republican National Convention like a conquering hero. He cheated death, a judge had dismissed a criminal case against him, and his Democratic opponents were tearing themselves apart. Indeed, the number of Democrats now calling for President Joe Biden to stand aside now appears to be increasing. But time is not on their side. So where are we after a week that's changed the course of this presidential election campaign? But let's discuss with Peter Chowka, who's a veteran political analyst and contributor to AmericanThinker.com, and John Scardino, who's a representative of Democrats Abroad UK. Peter, first of all, I mean, it is odd to describe Donald Trump having a good week in the same week he was nearly assassinated, but it does all appear to be going well for him, both politically and legally.
Well, I think you could say that. And based on the convention, I watched all of the convention coverage on television, which is what it was designed for. And the Republican convention this week that nominated him was pitch perfect. It was an impressive television program featuring real people more than politicians. And Trump had unified his party remarkably, and there was great anticipation of his speech that he gave Thursday night accepting the nomination. But he started out strongly there. He recollected his being shot 1 week ago today in Pennsylvania, a remarkable story. And as observers in the convention hall said, you could hear a pin drop during the 20 minutes or so that he was talking about that. But then he pivoted. He went off script. He had a prepared speech of about 3,000 words, and before the end of the night, he had added another 9,000 words ad lib. So it ran 93 minutes, and that's where he lost, in my opinion, a lot of the audience, even some Republicans and probably a lot of the people that he was trying to appeal to out there to unify the country. He did make at the outset statements that he was going to try to unify this country, which certainly could use unifying and ending the political divisions that had divided us. But I don't know. I really think he did not meet his mark. And that's in any case, my review, at least of the convention. And, we go on from there.
Okay. Well, John, that unity among the Republican Party is in very sharp contrast to the disunity in the Democrats with all these calls for Joe Biden to stand aside.
Well, I would disagree slightly. I just wanted to pick up on one of the things that your other guest, Peter said that about the disunity or the unity in the Republican Party. Just a reminder that there's plenty of disunity in the Republican Party. The Donald Trump's base is and always has been incredibly well unified. There's hardly anything you could do other than practically deify Donald Trump, which is mostly what happened at the Republican convention. But there are, his previous vice president, Mike Pence, has not only said, I'm not going to support him, I'm not voting for him. The previous Republican Speaker of the House has said the same thing. And there are a number of other leading Republicans like Liz Cheney who have said, we're not supporting him, we're not voting for this guy. So, in fact, that they were considered voting for Biden. Yes, I mean, let me answer your question. There is a lot of debate within the Democratic Party about Biden, and it is a media frenzy to follow this story, sadly, and not focus so much on the big differences between Biden and Donald Trump. But understand, I mean, it's a story, it's a dramatic story, and that's where the attention is. But I think this will resolve itself pretty soon. Biden has said, I am running, I'm back on the campaign trail next week, and I am running, I'm in this game.
But would that resolve it? Because if he continues, won't the voices of discontent, particularly if the polls keep going in Trump's direction, surely that's not going to lead to unity?
Well, as far as we're concerned, and by we, I mean Democrats abroad, and we are working like crazy here in the UK and particularly in Scotland to find every single American voter who's living in the UK at the moment. And in Scotland, we're very, very active. And I don't mean to dismiss your question, but I think where the real fight matters is here in the small numbers. A number of overseas voters can make a huge impact, as we did in Georgia. 18,000 voters voted for Biden in Georgia in 2020, and Biden won that state by just 11,000 votes. So it's an enormous impact that just a few voters can have, and that's why we're working like crazy to find every single one in Scotland and elsewhere that we can. But yes, I mean it's there are going to be bumps along the way. The process at the moment is to try to get all of the states to do their roll call vote, which you saw with the Republican convention as one of the parts of the ceremony to officially designate the nominee. We're going to be doing that a bit early because Ohio has this crazy law that they were trying to get Biden off the ballot. The Republicans in Ohio were trying to get Biden off the ballot. Sorry.
But John, the problem is the poll numbers are running away from him. I mean, things are getting worse for President Biden when it comes to polling. It's suggesting that, he would be beaten by Trump, particularly in these key swing states. He had that terrible debate a few weeks ago. We just mentioned in the news there that someone who's a close friend of his said that, President Biden didn't even recognize me last time that we spoke. And a lot of people think that a lot of his television interviews haven't really been that great. He can't go on like this, can he?
Well, I would just say that the campaign, the Biden campaign, has only really just begun to fight. All the attention has been on Trump with the assassination attempt and the convention and his court cases and that kind of thing. And the attention now will swing towards the Democrats, I think, a bit more in the run-up to our convention, which is later in August. There'll be a lot of advertising dollars that are going into supporting Biden and promoting him across the country. So I think, watch this space.
Peter, will Donald Trump be more than happy if Joe Biden sticks around?
Absolutely, because he and his supporters feel that President Biden is his weakest opponent. But, it's unprecedented, Graham and John. We're 1 month away from the Democrat convention, and it's uncertain if President Biden will be the party's nominee. And as of last night, that is Friday night, a total of 34 to 37 Democrat congressmen and senators have called on President Biden to abandon his candidacy. And although that's a relatively small percentage of the total Democrats in Congress, we have the report from the New York Times on Tuesday citing 12 anonymous sources that these sources close to former President Obama have said that Obama wants Biden to drop out. And the next day, the Washington Post reported that Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House and the most powerful Democrat woman in the United States, was encouraging Biden to drop out as well. So the next week or two will be very, very interesting as President Biden appears to be digging in his heels there as he recovers from COVID at his beach house in Rehoboth, Delaware. And his supporters, of course, his campaign people are saying he's in it until the end. He's going to win. But we have an increasing number of Democrats. And not only that, but the donors. There have been reports all over the place in the mainstream media here that the wealthy donors who make a campaign possible nationally are not writing checks anymore. They're not giving money to the Democrats. So something's got to give, and we should know within the next few days or week what that will result in.
It does look, Peter, at the moment like it is Donald Trump's election to lose, but I wonder if you reflect on this, what does Trump have to be careful of? You said you had some misgivings about his speech. Could he potentially mess it up for himself if he's not careful?
Very, very easily, in my opinion. We'll see later today, Saturday, he and his running mate, J.D. Vance, have their first political rally in front of supporters in the state of Wisconsin or Michigan, I believe. But yes, I mean, this year it's absolutely impossible to predict who's going to win. The polls now really, in my opinion, are meaningless. It's a long road ahead. We've seen the campaign upended. The last time I was on with you, Graham, 3 months ago, it was on the eve of President Trump's trial in New York City. That was a low point for him. Now, 3 months later, things seem to have been flipped. And plus, if I could briefly mention this, The parties are realigned now, in the view of several people who I really respect, who are historians and political analysts. They point out that the Republican Party under President Trump has been remade into a more populist party, appealing to middle class and working class voters, including more Black and Hispanic voters, people of color. And this is also borne out by many of the polls now. So we shall see. But it's going to be, in my opinion, my long career covering national politics, this is the most fascinating election year I have ever seen.
Yeah, so many twists and turns. Last word to you, John. I suspect you'll agree with Peter. It's a long way to go, yet anything could still happen.
Anything could still happen. I just remind your listeners what happened in 2016. Everybody thought it was Hillary Clinton's election to lose.
Right.
And everybody expected that she was going to walk away with it. So a lot can happen in a few weeks, as we know in politics. But it is interesting to see how things are shifting. I would just say to what Peter said about the appeal that Trump has to these working class voters, that when no matter what class you're in or what your race or background is, when you look at Donald Trump in that speech that he gave, and as I said, it started off okay, but it was a 90-minute speech. I understand that was the longest speech in the history of accepting nominations. And when you look at it, listen to it, and how wandering Trump was, and how off message and illogical and a bit crazy at times. Some of the things that he brought up had nothing to do with anything. You have to wonder, is he the right candidate to run for the Republican Party, and maybe he's the one that ought to be stepping down.
All right. John Scardino from Democrats Abroad UK there, and Peter Chowka, contributor to AmericanThinker.com. And John is certainly right. I've certainly stopped listening to predictions when it comes to politics these days, because you can always be sure that there'll be another twist and turn in the story. Now,